everyone. I'm Janice Clines, Marketing Manager for AOE, and today we're discussing succession planning. I'm joined by Kimberly Kayler, CPSM, President of AOE, who has extensive knowledge and experience on the subject. With so many retirements coming up in our industry, succession planning is a frequent topic that comes up, and many AOE clients are asking for guidance. Kimberly, can you give our audience a brief description of what succession planning is?
Sure, happy to. And thank you for sitting down with me today.
No
So
problem.
many think of succession planning in terms of replacement planning. So, planning for somebody retiring, planning for, some sort of catastrophe of somebody leaving. But succession planning really should be thought of, in a better definition, as looking at skills development and really making a good match with the needs of an organization and matching the right people for it. So many fall into the trap of just thinking of it in terms of replacement. I want you to think of it in terms instead of a match with what your organization needs.
Okay. So why is succession planning essential for organizations?
Well, succession planning is super important, not just because of retirements, but because we're all vulnerable of somebody leaving. We tend to like to think that all of our people love being there, but you never know what kind of opportunity may jump in for them and somebody may choose to leave. Or unfortunately, illness, family emergency, even death could force your organization to have to respond quickly to filling a role. So it's key to look at it. Many recognize that during even the pandemic, they had to deal with succession planning. Maybe people didn't actually leave the organization, but they had to look at how roles were filled actually physically in the office versus virtual, et cetera.
Okay. So who should be involved in succession planning?
So to look at succession planning, it should be a broad-based group. So if you have shareholders, getting some input from them, but it needs to go beyond HR. Again, if you're looking at succession planning in terms of matching skill sets with the organization at the time you need to make the replacement, you need to have input from various areas of the organization. One of the other things to really think about with regard to succession planning is not just in terms of replacing a human being, but having that short-term plan in place should somebody leave, or should somebody even, be on a temporary leave, and you need to actually make decisions. So who does that? Where are the passwords for things? Do people know the chain of command? Who's in charge of actual communication of all those things? So it's essentially crisis communication planning, as well as growth for your organization in terms of strategy.
Okay. So who's the successor? I mean, what does this person look like to an organization, and what skill development should an organization look for?
So I don't like to think of succession planning in terms of successors, though that is the traditional way. Too often when successors are identified, in many cases, all efforts put in just that person being, groomed for that position, which can work out just fine, provided you stop and you pause and you look at, hey, does this new person actually match the needs of the organization today and what we anticipate the needs being tomorrow? So many organizations have really been challenged by either grooming someone as a successor and they no longer match the needs of that organization or have the skill set needed. Or the other thing that could potentially happen is that the person that they're grooming as a successor goes away or is no longer available, and then they're really in trouble. So I really like to think of succession planning more in terms of a process. So should a retirement be announced, or should somebody vacate the position, what does that 3-month action plan look like? What's the 6-month action plan look like until the right person is fit into the role?
Okay. So what should a succession plan, excuse me, what should a succession plan include?
So a succession plan should include a lot of nuts and bolts of the organization. So the things that you may not realize could be an issue if somebody left. So maybe pause and think about, hey, if I lost John or Jane in the organization, we'd be in trouble. Do you know where passwords are? Are they the only person that have access to certain information? What are the processes that they know that maybe others don't know? So succession plan should have all the nuts and bolts of the actual framework of running your organization. And it should go beyond just the top people in the organization too. You need to look across all areas of the company or your association and identify the key areas that should be actually detailed. The other thing you need to have in the succession plan, again, is attributes you're looking for in those positions. And then to actually look at it on a periodic basis and say, does that still match and meet the needs of our organization?
Okay. So what about communication? What should an organization offer to those inside or outside of the organization?
So succession planning should be part of any sort of performance planning, training, goal setting. So as long as your organization has a good method for processing reviews, for processing feedback, succession planning should be part of it. Again, don't think just of it as the very top level of the organization, but how do you groom your people to take on other areas of responsibility? So linking that up with your performance reviews is key.
Okay. So why is senior level support essential to the succession planning process?
So senior level support is really key, again, just based on making sure there's an alignment in terms of the skill set needed with the organization of today and tomorrow. And I can't stress that enough. So instead of just saying, hey, John or Jane are the ones that are going to move up, we all know that's going to happen. Senior leadership should have a voice in terms of what we need or what we see. You know, think of things right now that are impacting our world: AI, Chat GPT, 5 generations in the workforce. That and so many other factors need to be considered in terms of our future leadership. So senior leadership should have a say in what is needed.
Okay. So is leadership training something that we should factor in with succession training
I
or
think so.
succession
Yeah,
planning?
very much so. I think that that's something that's actually really key to be part of your performance reviews and feedback.
Okay.
As we all know, leaders are different than managers. So, identifying, what leadership skills are needed.
All right. So you've given us a lot of information on what we should do. Give me some information on your background. What's your experience on the topic of succession planning?
So we've worked with several different associations and organizations, either through a transition and change in ownership or leadership. So, for example, can think of 3 or 4 different engineering firms we worked with that the partners retired. And so we worked through succession planning to make the transition good, not only for clients, but also for the employees. And then all involved. It's really, really key. Another key thing is we've worked with associations in terms of recruiting and actually helping with the interview process to select the next successor. And again, a key component of that is the communication steps all along the way.
Okay. So how can AOE help?
So AOE is well versed in all things leadership as well as succession planning. Again, we very much believe that succession planning is crisis planning, it's communications planning, it's actually looking at your skill sets and your people. How does it match with your goals and strategy? These are all areas that we have core expertise in. So we can actually work with your organization to help you figure out what that next generation looks like, and to be prepared for it, because you never know when you actually may need to put your succession plan in place.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you, Kimberly, for taking the time to talk with me today. For more information on succession planning, visit our website at aoeteam.com. Thank you.
Thank you.